that's enough of that intro music. Let's get this show started. Welcome to Thursday Theory on a Thursday, December the 23rd. 2 days before Christmas.
2 days before the Western Christmas.
Sorry, Esha, what did you say?
2 days before the Western Christmas, because Eastern Orthodox people celebrate it on January 6th.
Is that something to do with the 12 days of Christmas?
Are there 12 days between December 25th and January 6th?
No, I'm pretty sure there's 17.
12 days. What maths are you doing, Sammy?
Wait, what? Oh, crap. Yeah.
26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30, 31, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 12 days.
That would make
6 days
sense.
each way. Yeah, it's 12 days Christmas, right?
I did not know. Yeah, I did not know if that's the origin of the song. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because you're supposed to put your Christmas tree up on Christmas Day. That's the 12 days of Christmas.
Why are you supposed to put it up on Christmas Day?
Because that's the 12 days of Christmas. It's from the 12th from the 25th to the 6th is the 12 days of Christmas in the Christian.
No, I actually never knew that. Why don't we have 12-day holidays?
I don't know.
We should, shouldn't we? I mean, really. But people put it up. Capitalism's made it so it goes up like halfway in the middle of November these days, right?
Or October. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And Christmas carols should be banned. In New York, you hear Christmas carols everywhere. And if I were to hear Jingle Bell Rock one more time, I'm gonna go nuts.
To be fair, though, like New York is the home of like modern Christmas, right? Capitalist version.
You know what's really funny? The Santa Claus used to be red and green, but then because of a Coke commercial, they changed Santa Claus to be the Coke color of red and white, and that stuck.
I've heard that one before. What else was I going to ask you? You're in New York. Have you done like the tourist Christmas?
Oh hell no.
You've never done it.
Okay, I can't. I'm in fact in Connecticut, hoping to escape New York Christmas right now. I'm with my sister.
There you go. Natives trying to escape, and the tourists come for New York Christmas, I guess.
Oh God.
Anyway, enough about Christmas. This isn't the Christmas show. Talking of Christmas shows, though, we do have one in the works that was similar to last year. The winners and losers that will be out at some point, but yeah, not before Christmas.
Okay, I have an idea. For New Year's Eve, we should play Boris Yeltsin's resignation speech from Gunpoint because it's a funny one.
From gunpoint?
We don't know if it's from Gunpoint, but he sounds like somebody's holding a gun to his head.
My favourite thing about that period was one thing that really upset Yeltsin when he got outed was that he backed Putin. Putin convinced him to like back him, and then when he won, Putin refused to call him to say thanks.
Oh my God!
And it deeply hurt Yeltsin.
But
apparently, Yeltsin's daughter, when he died, was like, yeah, from that day forward, he was never the same again. Like, good. I grew up. Hold on, before you go on. I grew up as a kid in the 90s. Every day he was on TV swaying, drunk.
Okay, he deserves everything he got, and wow, Putin did. Okay, now this makes me infinitely respect Putin, and I'm gonna start to see if I can find that video of Yeltsin's daughter saying that. But oh my God,
I'll try and find it after the show.
Okay, he brought back child prostitution, so don't feel too bad for him. But his resignation video is hilarious because it really looks like somebody held a gun to his head.
Yeah, we did a show on the podcast with a Russian communist who was talking about 90s Russia in the Yeltsin period, the post-Soviet period, where people were selling off worldly possessions on markets and roadkill and just kids smoking and all sorts.
Yeah, I hate talking about that period. Oh God, it depresses me. But let's talk about maybe a slightly more hopeful period. Things were probably just as bad, but 1901 Russia. Put that tweet up, Fran. I think it's kind of funny.
Which tweet?
The tweet that I
Oh, this one with
yeah,
with
but
Uncle Authority, right?
Yeah, you're not sharing your screen, by the way.
All right, hold on then. Let me get this tweet up, and then I'll share the screen. You start talking about it.
Okay, so yesterday, so Lenin wrote like in 1901 like a little bit of like an outline on anarchism, and according to the English version, Lenin says that anarchism is bourgeois individualism in reverse, and it somehow bothered Uncle Authority Matt that Lenin said that because he thought it didn't sound Lenin-y, and so he had me check. And yeah, and the funny thing is that this is what he said literally in the Russian. He said something like he said something like anarchism is unscrewy inside outly. So he used unscrewed as an adjective, inside out as a adverb, and bourgeoisie individualism. So
is he saying like screwed up?
He's saying it's not screwed as in unscrewed.
Right, unscrewed.
Unscrewed inside. No, but he uses it as an adjective. I don't even know how to translate unscrewedly. Unscrewed, I don't know, unscrewy inside outly bourgeois individualism is what he actually says.
The nuances of languages.
I know. I can't even translate this, but it's actually like kind of funny.
I mean, this is a perfect example why you should never trust like media translations,
especially from a country that your media is against, like Russia. I mean, with Putin, they just translate the dumbest, like most boring statements. I've seen him constantly mistranslate Ahmadinejad. Anyone from Iran.
But they did it with Xi Jinping on the Chinese anniversary speech, where he said like anybody messes with China's like hitting your head against a brick wall, like that colloquial phrase, hitting your head against a brick wall. But the media decided to like translate it literally and take it personally, as if like he's saying he's going to bash their head against a wall. But
he should.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but that's not what he was saying. But this is what they will do, right? When it suits them, they will play the nuances of translation into their favor. You know, he didn't even say that. He was using like a figure of speech, like you're hitting your head against a brick wall. Everybody knows what that means. You're just hurting yourself, right?
It's like a futile errand, something where you are going to do the same thing.
It wasn't a threat. It was like, don't bother. It's not. You're only going to hurt yourself.
It should be a threat, but yeah, but it's a futile errand, is what hitting yourself against a brick wall is.
Why did he say it was un-Lenin-y? How?
I don't know. Matt just felt that, and he's right. Lenin literally says, "Vi varacheni na iznanku буржуазный индивидуализм. Индивидуализм как основа всего мировоззрения анархизма."
Right.
Okay, I don't know why I read that, but yeah.
So he's more accurately saying that anarchism is bourgeois individualism twisted inside out.
Unscrewed, twisted, whatever, yeah.
Right, okay. Right,
I twisted inside out. That's actually not a bad translation. Sure, okay.
Sammy, what do you think? You're very quiet.
No, I've just been listening in, and like it kind of reminds me of what Stalin said about. Well, it's pretty much the same thing as what Stalin said about anarchism, is that it's bourgeois individualism, because the focus is obviously the individual instead of the collective. Also reminds me of Ho Chi Minh's quote, which means like, which goes by saying that the freedom of the individual cannot be secured or guaranteed without the freedom of the collective.
True.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're seeing that these quotes, when applied to like the COVID situation in China, make sense, right? Because the needs of the individual, as in not catching COVID, have been met by the collective, as in locking down the city. I think when I don't want to get into a COVID episode, the word lockdown it seems negative, but it just means like making sure you're not spreading a virus. But
Kublai Khan. Okay, you know how many people died of the bubonic plague in Europe? You know how many people died in China? Not many, because Kublai Khan actually instituted the first quarantine, where he just blew up all the merchant ships so they couldn't leave, and then he wouldn't let anyone else come in, and so he blew up the ports until something for like about a year or two, and then so in China, like, they saved themselves from the bubonic plague that killed almost half of Europe.
The Black Death.
And this Italian merchant writes about like how he went to China and then he was just stuck there because his ship got blown up. But then I don't know how Kublai Khan decided to end the quarantine, but he gave them all new ships and stuff like that.
Whenever it was safe to give it back. I mean, to me now, I don't want to get into COVID, but it seems like the world dealt with the Spanish flu better than it's dealt with COVID now. Anyway.
No, the Spanish flu mutated into something harmless, so the world didn't have to deal with the Spanish flu that much.
True. Right, what's the topic of tonight's show?
Well, I thought, so Canada is building a monument to the victims of communism.
Yes.
And I looked up some of the bricks in this monument, and we're going to talk about these victims.
Right, so what do you mean you looked up some of the bricks? What's the story?
The way the monument works is it's called Tribute to Liberty. And they're building this like really ugly wall, and if you pay $1,000 you can get a brick to your favorite victim of communism. And some people have been paying $1,000 for some pretty horrible people who...
So you pay $1,000 and you can get a brick and you can dedicate it to a fascist, right?
Or anyone you want. But the funny thing is that neither these two people neither were victims of communism, but they should have been. So they're not even victims of communism. They're just like, one is a victim of your fascism because he committed suicide.
Right, yeah.
Wait, no. No. Okay.
I'm just thinking about this sort of concept of like a wall where you can imagine somebody just innocently buying a brick for like dead grandmother or something, just like not knowing, next to like the Hitler brick or the Goebbels brick.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of we can go through this at the end. There is some grandfather bricks, and I feel bad. It's because it's like, oops, your grandfather was.
Well, surely the people paying for their grandfather to have a fascist brick are quite open. There's two types of fascists, right? There's the ones who are secret and hate to be exposed, and then there's ones that go and buy their granddad a brick, right, and then go every year and celebrate it, right?
What was the most outrageous one was that until I tweeted it out, they had a brick dedicated to Ante Pavlich. So if you're gonna have a brick dedicated to, thankfully my tweets and other people's Twitter storms put an end to it. If you're gonna have a brick dedicated to Ante
Hold on,
Pavlich,
what do you mean it put an end to it? You managed to get the fascist brick memorial to be like, that guy's too fascist for the memorial.
Well,
they have a limit.
So the limit is basically not Hitler, not Ante.
Right, okay. So it's a memorial. It's a memorial. I love how there's a memorial to fascists that there's fascists that are too fascists to be honest.
Well, I mean, it is Ante Pavlich, the head of the Croatian independent state of Croatia,
Well, yeah, sure, but it's quite funny how fascists are like, that guy's too fascist for our liking.
Well, no. It's not that they love him. It's okay. Here, I'll show you his brick. You can put it up on the screen. I'll put it in the chat. I still can't see the screen.
Let me fix that. It's my fault.
Okay, so this used to exist, but they thankfully removed it. Now I see it.
Let me load this brick up. So what you managed to get this? They managed to get the campaign for his brick taken down. That's pretty cool, though. I didn't know you'd done that.
Yeah, not me alone. Dan Buckner, a lot of other. But once you know who Ante Pavlich is,
yeah, we've done a show on him.
How?
You did a show, me, you, and Tom, right?
Okay.
Pretty sure we did. I'm pretty sure we did.
No way, no. We did one on Gladio.
No, we've done one about fascism in Eastern Europe and this memorial and some of the people on there before. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, this memorial. Yes, but I don't. Yeah, yes, we have. Okay. Then, but they weren't these detailed articles, so let's do it again. Yes.
Yeah, it weren't these people we've got lined up for tonight. Don't worry.
Okay.
Right, carry on anyway while I get this picture up. You introduce the topic.
Well, I thought I just did. How about the Victims of Communism Memorial? And I decided to do a dive on two people who were not...
Just a question, don't mean to interrupt you, but this is one of the people being recognized in that monument happened to be Stefan Bandera.
I don't know off the top of my head. It is possible, but I can't say yes or no off the top of my head.
I see, because I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case.
Okay. So
there definitely are memorials to them in Canada and the US. But anyway, carry on, Ash.
Sure.
Ash?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, carry on.
Oh, yeah, I forgot what there are many memorials but doing tour of all the New Jersey fascists over the holidays.
Right, here we go. Here's Article 1.
Okay, so this guy was featured in the Victims of Communism. Just scroll a little bit down.
There with.
His name is Roman Shukhayevich. Can you read what they said, and I will fill in the gaps.
Sure. Sure. Right. For every brick, we shall bring their story. This special December series called "Featured Victims of Communism." Right. What they said about him. This is the Victims of Communism Foundation, or is it the Canadian Statue Foundation? Right. Or is that the same thing?
Same thing. Tribute to Liberty.
Right. Okay. In memory of General Roman Shukhayevich, 1907 to 1950, who in 1943 formed and led the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UP, which fought to rid the Ukraine of enslavement from Soviet communist rule. He died in battle with the Soviet security forces on March the 4th, 1950.
I wonder on the side of whom?
Okay. So they were kind of right, except for the battle with Soviet forces. It was more like I wouldn't even call it a battle. But so they omitted a lot. So let me start with the map of the world before World War I looked vastly different. Most of Ukraine was part of Tsarist Russia, except for area in the west known as Galicia, which was a protectorate of the Austria-Hungarian Empire. Inspired by the Bolshevik Revolution, soldiers in the Austria-Hungarian Empire simply out. Like, they were like soldiers from what is now Croatia. They just were like, okay, I'm not fighting this war. France, what the hell? And they just literally checked out. They're like, I'm going back home. Which led to the collapse of the Austria-Hungarian Empire. Modern countries were carved out with the whip of a pen as to maximize profits for the France, US, UK fracas alliance, while carving out countries with no regards to the people, the families, their ethnicities, or historic ties. The fracas alliance also tried to balkanize as much of Tsarist Russia as possible to preserve these areas for their capitalistic and imperialistic profit. Okay, so France had armed and trained petty industrialist Joseph Pilsudski in what is now considered modern Ukraine. The Fracas Alliance also armed Anton Denikin and his White Armies. Denikin's anti-Semitism was so outrageous that Winston Churchill had to warn him to tone it down, or else he may not be able to get continued support. This is what Winston Churchill said.
You know you've messed up when Winston Churchill has to tell you to tone it down.
Tone your racism down. Yeah, you're too racist. Okay. My task is winning support. I can't do it, Churchill. Okay, you do. You read it. I'm gonna have to listen to him. I'll be able to do it next. Though.
It's too posh. I can't do it, but I'll read it. My task and... No, Sammy, you read it. Come on, Winston Churchill this.
I can read. I can do it. I just need to listen to him for an hour beforehand.
Sammy's got a posh accent anyway. Sammy,
okay,
come on.
Come on. Yeah, you have got a posh accent.
Okay,
It's on
my
the screen.
task in winning support in Parliament for the Russian nationalist cause will be infinitely harder if well-authenticated complaints continue to be received from Jews in the zone of the volunteer armies.
It started off good, and then you went even posher. But anyway, well done.
How can
Nice.
you go posher than Churchill? His family is dispensers.
He just did. Anyway, carry on. Look. Go on.
Luckily for most people, the Bolsheviks were able to defeat the White Armies in the region that is now known as Ukraine. Finally, Soviet Russia signed a peace treaty called the Brest-Litovsk, where once again the borders changed. The Allies, who were very supportive of self-determination for Ukraine, became shocked at what many Ukrainians themselves determined for themselves. In 1920, Soviet Galicia was declared, but it was short-lived. Worried about more people self-determined, the Allies gave their explicit blessing for Pilsudski's armies to carve out as much land as possible for his Polish Republic. During this process, Pilsudski's armies engaged in a campaign of Polification, which entailed the wholesale genocide of anyone who was not Polish. Despite this, the leader of what was left of the white Ukrainian armies, Simon Petlura, made a deal with the proverbial devil, according to the CIA. The Ukraine National Directory, with Simon Petlura was at the head, was left completely to itself in these fateful struggles. At the end of 1919, it was clear that the battlefield and it had to clear the battlefield and seek an alliance with the newly created state of Poland, whose head Pilsudski had a great understanding of the danger from the east. In April 1920, Poland and the Ukraine concluded a treaty in conjunction with military. A joint Ukrainian and Polish campaign led to the liberation of Kiev in May 1920, but it had to be abandoned and the joint armies had to clear the Ukraine. Poland deserted its Ukrainian ally in the peace treaty at Riga in 1921 when it recognized the Soviet government in the Ukraine. Regular war between the Ukraine and Moscow at that time. Finally, in 1923, the Fracas Alliance decided to recognize Poland's annexation of Galicia and therefore forcing the Ukrainian nationalists to reap what they sowed. Under this backdrop, Roman Shukheyevich became part of the Second Republic of Poland. He managed to graduate from Politechnika Lwowska with a degree in civil engineering. Soon, he and fellow students formed an illegal organization to fight for an independent Ukraine. But that is a joke. If they truly wanted an independent Ukraine, nothing prevented them from using their white armies to support Soviet Galicia. In reality, what they wanted was the restoration of feudal relationships when Galicia was a protected Austro-Hungarian Empire. In 1931, Roman Shukhayevich became the head of the militant wing of the OUN as UPA. Their organization engaged in petty terrorism while they assassinated mostly random government officials in the Second Polish Republic. But after the Nazi Party came to power in Germany in 1933, hundreds of Ukrainians were recruited and trained by the Abwehr. Many of these captured soldiers immediately spilled the details. The soldiers who were captured by the Red Army in World War II immediately spilled the details about their collaborators. Abwehr General Erwin Stolze, during this interrogation, recounted, making preparations for an attack in the Soviet Union, German intelligence was interested in using the Ukrainian nationalists, who were an active spy-terrorist organization, were already proven to serve the interests of the German General Staff. He further continued, in 1937, with the intensification for the preparation for an attack on Poland, contacts with the Konoval's organization were renewed, that is Bandera's organization. When asked about how they assisted in the invasion of the USSR, General Stoltz said, "At my direction, Bandera began to organize insurgent groups in Ukraine with the task of armed struggle against the Red Army and seizure of some important object, including the drug butch oil sources. At first, it was assumed by a single password given over the radio the group began the armed action. However, this was deemed inexpedient, and I, together with Bandera, decided that the group's action was to begin automatically with the invasion of Soviet territory by the German troops." According to the Abwehr, the UPA's offensive was coincided with the Wehrmacht's Operation Barbarossa. On June 30th, 1941, Yaroslav Stetsko, that's the man in the picture besides George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan, proclaimed an independent Ukrainian state. Okay, want to read what Stetsko said?
The restored Soborny Ukraine, which means the cathedral Ukrainian state, will cooperate closely with the National Socialist Great Germany, under which Adolf Hitler creates a new order in Europe, and the New World helps the Ukrainian people to break free from the Moscow occupation. Long live the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. May the guide of the OUN, Stefan Bandera, live on.
Yeah, after this proclamation of their own state, members of the OUN went on an orgy of violence. This was in 1941 June. According to eyewitnesses, pregnant women were hit or kicked in the stomach. They stripped a 20-year-old Jewish woman, and I don't want to read that.
Okay, yeah, don't read that one.
Okay. Jews were forced to kneel and scream out loyalty to the OUN. Most of the sadism is available on film with Google search. They are too graphic to display on our website. A week later, on the night of July 6, 1941, the Nachtingal Battalion followed a path from Lvov to Vinica, spilling as much blood as possible. In their first city of Zalachiv, Soviet prisoners of war were deprived of food and water, and their corpses were displayed to incite terror among the population. Yeah, that's the path of the UP. Sorry, Nachting. Okay, hold on. In Sanatov, they engaged in some gratuitous acts of sadism by setting fire to synagogues and forcing Jewish citizens to say affirmations to Christ and pretend that they were filled with joy. Members of the proudly boasted about their deeds, according to the Nachtigal fighter Viktor Kharkov Kamara during this July march. At the time of our march eastwards, we saw with our own eyes the victims of the Judeo-Bolshevik terror. The sight was so strengthened our hatred of Jews that in 2 villages we shot all the Jews encountered. Genocide. I recall one example. At the time of our march through one of the villages, we saw many vagrant people. We asked where they were going. They answered that the Jews were threatening them and that they were afraid of spending the night in their houses. As a result, we shot all the Jews we encountered there. This is the guy they have a monument over. The Nachtigal's reign of terror continued until August 1941. They were transported back to Frankfurt an der Oder, where they were given enhanced military training for pacification campaign. On October 1941, these same soldiers were reorganized as the 201st Ukrainian Schutzmannschaft Battalion, SS, known as 201. Roman Shukhayevich's title was of Hauptmann, captain of the 1st Company and deputy commander of the Legion. Any comments? I've read a lot.
I'm just thinking that, like, while listening to this story that it's a weird period of history that we're living in where, like, for years the West has it's the default position in the West, right, to celebrate the destruction of fascism in Europe in World War II, especially in Britain and even in America, right, and across Europe. They celebrate beating fascism. Well, no, America still produces World War II films, like, and has games and has maybe not the government but the people, right? The culture is to lampoon Nazis, right? Films like Inglorious and stuff like that, right? That's what I'm getting at. But then we're now living in this weird stage of history where in the last, say, 10 years, that, like, fascism is taking a real rehabilitation where once...
Don't use the passive tense because we all know that it's been funded to do so.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. But I'm saying it's kind of strange how we're having to now go back through these stories that, like, you know, at one point were published by the West to teach people about, you know, what fascism does, especially in Europe anyway. And now we're back at a point where these, you know, where banderas are having to. I mean, it's kind of strange. We've talked about this before, right?
The survivor, a lot of the Holocaust survivors. So
well, that's true. That's true.
No one to protest.
That's true, but, like, even we've talked about this before on the show with Tom ages ago. Like, in the UK, we have every town has a Spanish Civil War memorial, right? But that Spanish Civil War memorial is a socialist memorial to the workers from those towns who went and fought against fascism in Spain, right? But in Canada and the US, they have the opposite. They've got statues to, like, the OUN. Exactly. Well, it's very weird.
Oh no, it's not, because if you compare this to, like, the OUN probably committed less genocide than George Washington.
Well, that's true as well, but I'm just saying it's very strange that we've come... I think you've hit the nail on the head that, like, a lot of the World War II survivors, not just Holocaust survivors, but even veterans and stuff...
and is done now.
Yeah, are starting to die, so that you can start to rewrite history a little bit more and shift it further right again, right? So I guess you're right, but I do find it weird that we're in a stage, a part of history where everybody kind of knows that the Nazis were bad, but like there's kind of like a cut-off, isn't there, in Western society to Nazis bad. World War II has to be this...
Well, it's funny because they think it's like, I call it historical mortarism, where they think all the, like, you know how once, like, they threw the ring into the fire of doom, all the orcs just melted away. That's the kind of thing that the West wants us to believe.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at. They want to have this, like, story version of World War II, but in reality, like we've just touched upon here, there's this guy, what's his name? I mean, he's called, like, Karma, right? This guy is a fighter. He's called a fighter, and he's talking about how he loved going through a village, just shooting anyone, right?
He's literally a fighter, as in he was
But like, why is there a disconnect between the behaviour that he's done and the behaviour of what the Nazi state did, right? Even though they're for the same. No, I know he's. But why is there a disconnect in the West?
Because the West funded them afterwards, and it would be embarrassing if the West, they're like, oh, we funded these people, that even the Nazis complained about how brutal and gross they were, right? You can't manufacture
of course. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, definitely. But people don't know that, do they?
Now they do.
Okay. Carry on anyway.
Okay.
I can read some if you want. Like, don't.
Okay. Okay. I noticed a typo, so I got distracted. Okay. I can read for it. Okay.
Go on.
The Nazis. I need to put excellent. Okay. Blitzkrieg strategy of overwhelming force using their advanced Luftwaffe Air Force to rush over the Soviet territory. The Nazis' Nazi strategy was okay. That's wrong. The Blitzkrieg strategy was use of Sorry.
It's all right. Go on.
Overwhelming forces with their advanced Luftwaffe to rush over Soviet territory and level as much of it as possible, corroding the landscape and civilization with indiscriminate bombing campaigns.
Yeah, anybody who studied U.S. military tactics should understand that concept as well, right? Kind of what they did in Korea,
everything.
Vietnam, Cambodia,
Laos,
exactly.
Afghanistan,
Syria,
Syria,
Libya,
okay.
Exactly.
Syria.
Yeah, it's basically that strategy. But yeah, carry on.
This total annihilation approach to warfare drove rural villagers to undeveloped wooded areas. Soon, these irregular militias known as partisans were formed, and each resisting their Nazi occupation in their own way, resulting in a kind of asymmetric warfare.
Mm-hmm. That's the pictures of like people literally living out in the woods, right? You'd get those big group shots of
the partisans, yeah. And Hitler likened the partisans to the U.S. struggle against the Red Indians.
Of course.
Lots to think about here. Okay. Despite a massive technology deficit, the Belarusian partisans were comparatively successful. Partisan Nina Litwizink obtained a job as a typist in the Gestapo headquarters, soon compiling a list of names of every national who had collaborated with the Nazis. This detailed exposure of the rat line rendered the subsequent extermination campaign relatively effortless. Another partisan, Yelena Mazyanik, managed to infiltrate the house of Wilhelm Kube, planted a bomb under his bed scheduled to go off around midnight. The components of the bombs were so precisely attuned that come the end of its own countdown, Wilhelm Kube was successfully erased from the mortal plane, while his pregnant wife was left undisturbed until morning. Yeah, I mean, like, look at her. She's such a sweetie. Like, she didn't want to kill the baby. So
I mean, that's exactly like one of the deaths in kind of that you'd see in a film like Inglourious as well, right? Where they would just blow up this Nazi and leave everyone else intact.
Well, and I think she did the baby a big service by making that he's not raised dad. I wonder what happened to the baby. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, baby's got like an Order of Lenin or something. That would be brilliant.
I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Roman Shukhayevich's 201st Battalion was to eliminate partisans, apprehend saboteurs, as well as administer the Reichskommissariat. Nazi colonial outpost. Einsatzgruppen reports catalog daily operations in Benin terminology, rooted in the exact bare minimum amount of truth to escape the designation as euphemism. Fought partisans, quelled banditry. It belied the accompanying savagery, accompaniment. A pack of attack dogs used to tear and used to track terror apart partisans. Their tactics compensated for the lack of sophistication for primal terror. A standard program of no quarter was given, handed down on high from the Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, that attacks on the soldiers in the east should be met with putting to death 50 to 100 communists for every one German soldier, adding that human life was less than nothing in the east. In the 201st Battalion followed the letter and exemplified this degree in a manner that chilled the bones of proper nuts. So this was a complaint to Himmler by Erwin Engel. Ukrainian militia on horseback, armed with pistols, rides and laying straight cavalry swords, rear riding wildly inside and around the town park. As far as I could make out, they were driving people before their horses, men, women, and children. A shower of bullets was then fired at this human mass. Those not hit outright were struck down with the swords. Like some of the ghastly apparition, this horde of Ukrainians let loose and led by the SS officers trampled savagely over human bodies, ruthlessly killing innocent children, mothers, and old people whose only crime was that they had escaped the great mass murder, as to be eventually shot or beaten to death like wild animals. Imagine how bad you have to be in order to horrify a nut.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just listening to... I mean, it's fucked, isn't it, basically? For a better word.
Okay. So, in their first mission, they were dropped off by their German detachment near Lake Damzhiratskaya, located in the Vitebsk region. That's like somewhere in Belarus. For the first few days, the 201st Battalion did pursue the partisans, unsuccessfully albeit. Instead, they decided to engage Plan B, killing and destroying everyone in the villages. They began in a town called Lagoisk. According to a survivor who may be she and 5 others hid under the bush until nightfall. And then either a Russian or a Belarusian approached them and warned them against returning to the village. They said, "Run, they've killed everyone." Another partisan diary states, on September 2nd this year, Hitler's bandits broke into the village of Krapovichi Vitebsk district. They burned down 78 houses of the collective farmers, 97 outbuildings, all public yards, and the secondary school building. They also destroyed the church. Another survivor in their rampage, Maxim Kozlovsky, recounts, "They brought us all together in one place. Then they ordered us to go into the house 8 at a time and began to shoot us. My wife and I went into the house and my children into another. The forester's wife and her infant child begged not to be killed. Then the Punisher, as in snatched the child from her and hit her against the corner of the house, and then they shot her. They killed my 2 sons in front of my own eyes. I ran away with my 3rd son. We ran into the house. The Punishers found us there, shot me, wounded me in the back. I ran to the forest. I was ambushed. They shot at me, but I managed to escape. In the village, a woman and 2 other children hid my son under the floor. The child cried. The soldiers shot and killed 1 boy and set fire to this house. In the course of Operation Swamp Fever, the fascists managed to kill 10,013 Soviet citizens and 1,217 were forcibly relocated to one of the forced labor camps. This wasn't all. He continued to engage in massacres in Poland and Russia. In fact, he was a fourth brother, engaging in acts of terrorism until he shot himself in 1950. The sixth joke and grand irony stitched to the border of the red curtain that closed on Roman Shukievich's wretched life is that he can so easily be touted as a victim of communism, despite no one cut from this man's cloth guilty of these crimes have any reasonable claim to being cast as a victim of anything at all. It is precisely because of his prowess as the harvester of sorrow he was. For the autobiography of a subordinate regarding the movements of the Nachtigal detachment of the Ukrainian SSR, during our march we saw traces of Jewish Bolshevik terror. This so strengthened our hatred that in 2 villages we shot all the Jews we met. The NKVD's massacres and victims' references of killing Nazis and their collaborators at the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, apparently some kind of misdeed when performed by communist hands, tell the same story. As these harbingers of death made their way through the west of Ukraine, if they encountered evidence of anti-fascist activity in a village, it was used as an impetus and rationale to slaughter all the Jews in sight, sometimes entire villages. The numbers bear this out. Starting from the Nachtigal Battalion, 4,000 Jews killed in their pogroms in Lviv, throughout the remainder of western Ukraine as they moved towards the center and took Kiev, liquidating over 30,000 Jews. When this human plague reached the land east of Dnieper, the Jewish problem was solved by the liquidation of over 4,000 Jews, with those left being taken as a slave or cordoned off into groups of up to 1,000 at a time.
What do you mean cordoned off? Ghettoized, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Following this trail of blood and brutality blazed by the Nachtigal detachment in response to traces of Judeo-Bolshevik terror by Roman Shukhavich was in Belarus, with the 201st Battalion waging a terror campaign against the partisan. When Oberkommando William Keitel issued a decree on September 16, 1941, that 5,200 Belarusians should be slaughtered for every Nazi killed by a partisan, he was merely elevating the savagery, somehow both rabid in practice yet rational in calculation, established by Shukievich's Nachtigal detachment. In Ukraine, to the level of official policy that would contribute greatly to Belarus' 25% of its population, 1 in 4. We know this through investigations into morbidity, literal corpse counting, records released long after the fact, statements from perpetrators themselves conducting thorough research in multiple languages, revealed a distinct absence of living witnesses that were not directly responsible for this terror. This comparison, made by Hitler himself to what was done to the Red Indians by the US, was disgusting yet thoroughly warranted. This was a full-scale, unbridled extermination campaign to clear the land for settlement by foreign invaders, and the results are reflective of that. And this is the bust of Roman Shukhevich in Edmonton, Canada, which is the second monument that he doesn't deserve. And Roman Shukhevich, as with those involved in the extermination of the indigenous in what is now the US, is memorialized and glorified on the basis of galling omissions, glaring obfuscations, and outright denials of historical. Within cults of personality built by ghouls seeking reassurances of an alleged right of supremacy held by a race that reproduces itself on barbarism alone and condemns it all of. Hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on a propaganda campaign operating organs like victims of communism to whitewash the legacies of some of the most brutal men history has to offer, because it is the level of energy and resources that must be spent to validate their ideology of the ravenous devouring of the world itself. And
very characteristic of a country like Canada, really, if you look at how they treat their indigenous populations.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on, Ash.
And I've updated the typo of some of those. Okay, let me read the last paragraph. An organization like Victims of Time exists because without someone to invent the reality where any exists, we would never see them. Without an organization, time, energy, above all money, could be spent converting slave owners and genociders into sympathetic figures in the crusade against an ideology built on the principle that every human has the right to be fed, clothed, and educated and live indoors. We would notice we are permanently surrounded by
Victims of capitalism, right? You broke up a little bit, right, on that last sentence. I mean, that's a fabulous article for part one, right? Before we move on, I just want to ask, right, Sammy, the similarities, right, between what was being described there in the actions of the militia groups that were running wild, right, and just like executing people, dragging people out of the house. If they didn't have this, it was just like, oh fuck it, murder them all, right? What are the similarities in that between like the way that ISIS sweep across land in the Middle East?
The U.S. government did the same in Iraq.
Well, of course, but what I'm saying is they sound pretty similar, right?
It does indeed, yeah, because like
they're just
like
bandits.
basically in a nutshell, it is quite similar to what ISIS like perpetrated there in that region, and it's like it has been very graphic. One of the most notable cases, I believe, is when one of the affiliated groups actually beheaded a child, like 10 to 13 years old, basically accusing him of being like...
Oh, no, I've seen that video.
Or whatever.
I've seen that video, yes. I put it on Twitter too.
What did they accuse him of being, Sammy?
Horrific.
And a soldier for Assad, but he's like 12, and there's no way he can be a soldier for Assad.
Okay, no. Right. I mean, the similarities. The similarities. The reason why I ask is because there's no difference, right? There's still going on in the world today. There's still these same.
Indeed, yeah.
Like we were talking about before, the West wants this like disconnect between historic fascism that failed, right? Got its ass handed to it by the Soviet Union, and all these people that got bullied by these fascists. Like you know.
Hold on. You know what's really funny? I always find it ironic that France and Britain, like, they seem to make Germany the ultimate villain, and look at what they did in their colonies. I just find that ironic that, and it's because the colonies have not struck back, and
it's definitely that.
Yeah, once they do that, France will be treated just like, because France did a lot of horrible stuff. I mean, France, Britain.
But didn't the Soviet Union sort of push back against the Eight Nation Alliance? I mean, of which Russia was part of, fucked around with it. They pushed back against that, and is China not doing it today? You're seeing like this is why the BBC are in such bits over China, right? Because they're just not getting the way that they got when they were representing the empire. So, I mean, you're right in saying that, but at the same time, Britain does get its ass handed to it. Look at Barbados. Yeah, kind of.
I mean, it's not the same. Okay. Until the red flag is planted on Windsor Castle, it's like the hegemony won't change.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
The British East India Company, like, all their records is in the bottom of the ocean, which they dumped. So, like, we can never have that Nuremberg that they deserve, because they dumped their records and the Red Army preserved it. So, that's why I find it ironic, and also the French collapse. Anyways,
but does the out and out fascism, the fact that the Allies sort of fought against Nazi Germany is the perfect cover, isn't it, for their behaviour as the Imperial Corps? Because they can be like, look, well, we actually fought against the fascists. Yeah, we were.
They did like the colonial competition. We wanted to colonize, and the fascists were competition is why U.S. and Britain fought.
And again, that's probably because all the people who remember the imperial powers and the white armies in Europe were dead by the time World War II started, right? So they could rehabilitate themselves. The Imperial Corps was in the position to be able to rehabilitate itself, because all those people who remember it as being a comprador were now gone, right? So we can do what we're kind of seeing them do today as well.
Possibly. But then, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, let's just move on to victim of communism number 2, right?
Yeah, this one's horrific.
Right, so that article, but it's on the homepage of Historically, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. People can find it there. We'll post a link out at the end of the show.
Despite Archbishop Aloysius Stepinac, in an affront to the concept of justice itself, dying peacefully in his homes from complications of a rare blood disorder, he managed to find himself posted to True to Liberty's Victim of Communism wall, not once, but twice.
Who's deciding these bricks, though? His family or the foundation?
Whoever paid that money. I don't know who.
Right, okay.
Worse, he was beatified by John Paul II on October 3rd, 1998. If Aloysius Stepinac rests in a state of bliss, then surely all proponents of decency the world over would be forgiven short order for taking the torch from the Sufi poet Rabia al-Basri in order to set fire to heaven and put out the flames to hell, so that the voyagers to God can rip their veils.
Can I just say, Pope John Paul in the 90s was such a fascist, and the guy after him who was basically just an old Nazi. You know, the one who had to be like outed for being too Nazi. Yeah, they had to replace him with the current one who's like a communist now, apparently.
No, he's a god. I mean, I love the current. He's like so godly. He's so adorable.
Right. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, so then you have to just move the screen up, but there was a...
Here he is.
This is Aloysius Stepinac. He looks like a douchebag.
Don't all fascists.
Yeah. Okay. True to its subsequent treatment of Archbishop Stepinac, any cursory glance at the historical document from the 1920s demonstrates the Vatican had as little to offer in the way of fascism did when Stepinac was created cardinal in 1952, as it did at his beatification 46 years later. Shortly following the seizure of power in Italy by the National Fascist Party led by Mussolini, the Secretary of State went to the Vatican Cardinal Gaspari on January 20th, 1903. Took a meeting with Mussolini cloaked in organization's typical secrecy. No record of the meeting, specific minutes exist, though what we know for sure is that the Vatican's instrumental role in fascist germ of one of the fascist regime political opponents, Partito Popolare, a centrist Christian democratic party built around Catholic social, whose pro-labor and anti-fascist faction struck in the Mussolini lacroix. 1 month following this meeting, Mussolini allowed for the restoration of the cross, began to pay tribute to the church its lands that were seized by the state, among other favors. Henceforth, the upper echelons of the Catholic Church found themselves remiss not to support the fascist state, position which only snowballed with time. A mere 15 years later, 72 bishops and 2,340 priests stood before Palazzo Venezia chanting for the devil, Duce, Duce, Duce. As such, we must not try too hard to locate our surprise that even prior to Stepinac exhibited fascist inclinations. Joining in the Hrvatski Arlavi, Croatian Eagles, officially a youth football club, unofficially a source for training paramilitary operations for the independent state of Croatia. In 1924, a mere 2 years later, at the age of 26, Stepinac was accepted into the Collegium Germanicum et Hungaricum, a German language seminary in Rome, benefiting from a Vatican decree years prior, greatly expanding the scope of education accordance with the Catholics of the time. Ordained on October 30th, 1930, and
26. October 26, 1930.
Sorry, that, yes.
Sorry,
Saying
I was
his
scrolling.
first Mass on the following 1st of November, Stepanak was swiftly appointed to the position of liturgical master to the Archbishop of Zagreb, Antun Bauer, on October 1st, 1931.
Oh,
Once
you always post your episodes on Zagreb time.
Because I have a adorable listener who tunes in, and she lives in Split, Croatia, and regardless of, oh my god, she's here. Oh my god, she's here too. Okay.
Nice.
I love
There you
her.
go. There you go.
Okay. She's Maggie Carp. Adorable. Her. Okay. Anyways, for her. Okay. So, I forgot where I was.
Archbishop of Zagreb, right? Anton Bauer.
Yeah, one scarcely has time to consider what a seemingly lofty title and position is this for a man ordained less than one prior to hold before learning that slightly less than 3 years later, on 28th of May 1934, he was made Bauer's coadjutor bishop, reportedly somewhere between the 5th and 8th choice for the politically sensitive position. The previous 5 or 8 all being rejected by the powers which had say in the matter, both the Crown and the Vatican. Stepanak was looked favorably by the Vatican due to his ascetic lifestyle while in the seminary. King Alexander granted assent upon learning of Stepanak volunteering for the Yugoslav Legion in approximately 4 months after World War I had ended. The king later wished to withdraw his support after receiving additional information, which possibly regarding what was then Stepanak's ardent Croatian nationalism, to which the Archbishop Bauer responded, "The royal word is irrevocable." And to the who the bleep is king here? Why doesn't he go away? Anyways, thus less than 4 years after ordination, Stepanak was consecrated as Archbishop on that day. At age 36, he was the youngest bishop in the Catholic Church, an archbishop no less, now presiding over the largest archdiocese in Europe without having been so much as a parish priest, and utterly unknown to the Croat peoples. The new Archbishop Stepanak found himself charged with the task of appointing presidents and the general staff of Catholic Action and its affiliated organizations, all hanging to an umbrella of over 49,000 members. Running parallel to these events in Borgataro, Italy, a budget of 25 million lira earmarked by Mussolini himself and the aid of the Italian army, one Ante Pavelic, was overseeing the training of no small number of right-wing art of sabotage and terror. In the year Stepanak's consecration as archbishop, the Ustazi had bragged that they had branches all over Yugoslavia. By 1939, Stepanak had appointed Dr. Felix Nidielski, a committed Ustazi member. You have to scroll up.
Fran's making tea at the moment.
Okay, a committed,
I'm back now. Hold on, I'll scroll.
A committed Ustashi, I believe it's pronounced, Ustashi member.
I know, it's pronounced Ustaše.
So basically, this organization, Ustashi, which is like the Croatian equivalent of the UN.
OUN.
OUN, yeah.
Okay, scroll down though.
It was deeply engraved into the Catholic Church, pretty much.
Yeah, scroll down. No, scroll up. I had previous paragraph yet.
This one.
Oh, yeah. Appointed a committed Ustazi member at the head of the Great Brotherhood of Crusaders in Banja Luka under the direct supervision committed of Catholic Action. Now scroll down, you see the picture. Nazis, Archbishop Stepanak. Okay, scroll down. Many Ustazi members were members of the clergy. At the hearing before Yugoslav authorities, later, this was after the war, priest Branimir Zupac confessed, in 1938, right on our Catholic St. Nicholas Day, I went from Zagreb where Stepinac was Archbishop, to Rome, and did it through Florence and Siena. In Siena, I learned from some Dalmatians, not people of living in Dalmatia, especially especially from Francis Dionysius Judith, that Pavlich had an apartment 5 kilometers from Siena in one village. I do not know the name of this village, but I think it's called Certosa. 3 of us, me, Dionysius, and another whose name I don't remember, we agreed to Pavlich. Through an Italian pastor, we found out where Pavlich was, and he allowed us to Pavlich at the communion of his own church. Of course, it was not only the lowly parish priest who met with Ante Pavlich during his years as a terrorist. Ivan Saric, the Archbishop of Sarajevo, met with Pavlich in the Vatican and penned a fawning ode to the meeting, later on published on Christmas Day in Ustazi paper. Okay.
Do you want me to read this?
Somebody else read this.
In St. Peter's Basilica, I saw you in the Eternal City. With him, with you, the hug was pleasant. What's this, a romantic fascist fan fiction?
Yeah.
Like our house, God himself accompanied you kind and strong to stand up for the house of our sacred word.
The Independent State of Croatia's official news organization reported that they had recruited fighters from high schools, Franciscan monasteries, and the University of Zagreb, primarily its theology department, which of course fell under the purview of Archbishop Stepinac. Even Catholic grade schools were not out of bounds for the Ustazi recruitment fields, as testified one former student.
Even as a 6th grader at the Catholic school in Oreskovic, I joined the religious organisation Crusaders in 1939. It was here we were brought up in the spirit of the Ustashi. Ustasi?
No, Ustashi. Yeah.
Jurica Frikovic and Jurico Rukavina came to our meetings and gave us lectures against Serbs, Jews and communists. Our slogan was, "Kill the Antichrist in the name of Christ."
Mm-hmm. On April 6, 1941, upon the invasion of Yugoslavia by the Axis powers and respective collaborators, the Yugoslavian army, considered quite strong, was surprisingly felled in short order. Thanks to the network of wait, you're scrolling up. I can't even scroll up that much. Thanks to the network of the Ustazi, whose of prior sabotage and terror made the army disarmament completely effortless. As for above 6th grader, presumably now an 8th grader, child soldier, we also organized our own strike group which attacked leftists at night. When the war broke out, the Yugoslav army broke out, disarmed it. We immediately entered the Ustazi, considered it our national duty. 1 week later, on the 13th of April 1941, Pavlich's march into Zagreb was complete. He claimed his throne as Poljavnik of the independent state of Croatia, where the following day, Archbishop Stepinac blessed him.
Oh, look at the salute he's doing.
Oh, yeah. In 2 weeks and 1 day's time from Pavlich's assuming power on April 28, 1941, the Ustazi, using the deaths of 2 members as pretense, 109 Bjelovar Serbs were gathered from Dovac and surrounding areas, deemed Yugoslav rebels squad. The surviving Godovac inhabitants were made to dig a mass grave for the nearly 200 victims, given quicklime to pour on the victims' corpses to hurry the erasure of evidence. On the same day, Archbishop Stepinac dictated a letter to every church, clergyman, and Catholic organization in Croatia. You should therefore readily answer my call for the safeguarding and the progress of the independent state of Croatia.
Just stop there. I find it funny in a sad way and a disgusting way, in an embarrassing way, that Westerners, even we've looked at like BBC Bite Size on this show before. Even like kids in the West know of like the Katyn massacre, right? Nazi propaganda, and it's like it's used as like an excuse for the complete eradication of like socialism, isn't it? Oh well, what about the Katyn massacre? That means the Soviet Union must be destroyed, right? Even though it's propaganda, but Westerners don't know anything about all these other little. I mean, I say little. That's 200 people killed.
There's another massacre around this area. It's actually happened. It's called Katyn, and there are 6 villages in Belarus completely eradicated.
Exactly, but people just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And they don't know that the Western powers like had supported it, basically. Carry on anyway.
Yeah. The relatives of one of the victims, however, unlike Archbishop Stepanak, were appalled by the heinous nature of this unquestionable crime against humanity and reported to the only authorities that were available, the Germans. A partial exhumation of the massacre was ordered, and 40 suspected perpetrators were arrested on the evening of 29th following an investigation conducted by 2 Nazi officers who reported to their superiors decrying the disorder in their sphere of control. The arrested Ustazi were disarmed and cordoned off in a house before Mladen Lorkovich, an Ustazi official, following a meeting with Siegfried Kaja, the Nazi ambassador, wherein Lorkovich mentioned that it was an internal Croatian matter, as well as invented prior crime of what 11 dead Croatian officials to the massacre, was able to secure the release of the perpetrators on the condition of a thorough investigation would be conducted. Obviously, this investigation took place, but it would begin a trend of Archbishop Stepanak demonstrating a higher tolerance and appreciation for violence against humanity, the literal Nazi.
I mean, I was going to say, you've goofed when the baddies are like arresting you for.
No, it gets worse. Okay, scroll down. Okay, between the 3rd and 11th of May, over 500 Serbs were killed by the Ustazi in Glina, found in mass graves strewn throughout many courtyards. Examination of the bodies left it conclude that those who were merely shot could be counted amongst the lucky. Consider one Milos Bunčić, the brother of a mayor of a neighborhood. The brother mayor was among the dead of his wife and their children. Seeing his brother and sister-in-law and nieces massacred, he fled, running directly into that the Ustazi were threatening to burn down his home and kill everyone lest he reported to the Ustazi command. Bunčić complied, and for his trouble he waited 8 hours until he finally lost consciousness. Believing he was dead, the Ustazi threw him in the cellar with 5 other corpses. On his reawakening, Bunčić recognized among the corpses Adam Resanović, a local shoemaker, Stojan Slepčević, a farmer, The others were tortured beyond his. Upon seeing this wretched tableau, Bunčić escaped through a window in the cellar.
I just want to say as well before we move on, Westerners might wonder why attempts in places like Belarus fail and shit like that, right? And it's because people in Belarus remember this happening to their like grandparents and shit, and they understand the phrase like "never again." So that's why the West makes no ground in places like that. You're asking the people who went through this to basically go through it again for no reason as well.
Yeah.
But not even for that, because there's no reason this time, but for even less of a reason, right?
Okay.
Let's look at this photo first. Sorry.
This is before the second Glina massacre. There were more Glina massacres, but this was in a Serbian church before the second. My guess is a lot. The stench of this evil wafted its way to the ambassador to Vichy, France, who wrote a letter to our Archbishop expressing his concern, to which the Archbishop wrote, "At the moment, I received news that 260 had been shot without trial in an investigative uprising in Glina. I know Serbs have committed grave crimes in our homeland, but during these 20 years of rule. But I consider it my episcopal duty to raise my voice and say it is not allowed according to Catholic morality. So I ask you to take the most urgent measures throughout the territory of the independent state of Croatia, so as to not kill a single Serb if his guilt is not proven and that he deserves death. Otherwise, we cannot count on the blessing of heaven that perish. I hope you don't mind this open word. With great respect, etc., etc. And I also included the original Croatian. Scroll down. Addressed to the Poglav, whatever. Ante. Yeah.
That's the letter to him, right?
Yeah, to Ante Pavlic. Okay.
So basically, he's been told stop, stop going on.
No, not stop. No. No massacres without trial. He didn't say stop.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to deserve death first.
Yeah. Okay. Scroll down. The letter. Okay. This awkwardly worded code more prominently blames the Serbs for their own massacres and fears the possible dissolution of the AH more than it does potential of future massacres, serving more as a heads up to the Ustazi that insatiable bloodlust was becoming PR issues and making bad before the Nazis. Compare what a Wehrmacht general wrote about the Ustazi.
I'll read this. Our troops have to be mute witnesses of such events. It does not reflect well on their otherwise high reputation. This may well happen eventually. Right now, with the available forces, I could not ask for such action. Ad hoc intervention in individual cases could make the German army look responsible for countless crimes which it could not prevent in the past.
Okay.
This Edmund Glaze von Hortzen now, is he like an old Kaiser general by any chance?
I don't know what he is.
He speaks like one.
Okay, good. Scroll. Can you scroll now?
Yeah, you want me to read this one?
Yeah. The second one's worse.
Compare the Gestapo's report on them.
You haven't scrolled up.
Yeah, I've read this one.
No, you have not. You've read one.
Yeah, I'm going to read
Scroll
the second one now. I'm just reading the title before it.
But you have to scroll up on the screen.
It's the Gestapo one's on the screen now. That's the right one, right?
Yes, this is the
Okay. Increased activity of the bands of rebels is chiefly due to the atrocities carried out by the Ustazi units in Croatia against the Orthodox population. They committed their deeds in a bestial manner, not only against males of conscript age, but especially against helpless old people. Especially, remember, keyword especially, women and children. Old people, women and children. The number of the Orthodox that the Croats have massacred and sadistically tortured to death is about 300,000. That's a Gestapo report to Himmler.
And there are 1,000 of these. Over 1,000. So what is there to say about a man who utter pales in comparison to the Gestapo writing to Himmler? Pope John Paul's assurance that this man rests in a state of bliss, beatified, permitting his public veneration, blessed, is incompatible with the good sense.
I mean, the first question I have to ask about this guy is...
Thankfully, Pope Francis has put a pause on it until he investigates, along with and invited the Orthodox to conduct their investigation. So basically, what's going to happen is that the Orthodox.
So again, you broke up a little bit.
The Serbian Orthodox Church will never do it. It's kind of like So basically, Pope Francis put a logistical hurdle because of the controversies. So he's been beatified, but he has not been a saint. So basically, the Serbian Orthodox Church will quote-unquote investigate and turn in a report, until which the Catholic Church will wait. And of course, the Serbian Orthodox Church has no interest in turning in a report, so they'll just wait until never. And
I've been forgotten about in 100 years.
And so he will not be a saint, but he has been beatified. And thankfully, Pope Francis put a stop to his sainthood.
Canonization.
Yeah, he won't be a saint. So, yeah, because that's just like, what the bleep?
My first question is, what this guy kind of proved. This is why the Catholic Church, the Vatican, was helping like the rat lines after the war, right? Helping. It was people like this.
Yep.
Can you? What's the connection? What's his connection to them? Is there any?
Archbishop. Well, like they put him up as archbishop when he was totally not qualified to. Like, how on earth would like some like graduate like 36-year-old become the archbishop of Zagreb without higher up in Vatican ranks?
That is true. Was this guy basically a puppet in the first place? I
don't know. It looks like it, but there isn't enough evidence that's been publicly released by the Vatican. Another.
Is there any way? I mean, is this guy's brick still going ahead? Can you tell who's paid for the brick, or is that kept?
Yeah, it's like the Croatian Society of Windsor.
Which is what? Some fascist NGO or?
I don't know. It's an NGO, is all I know. And
Go on.
Go.
No, go on.
And then And he has 2 bricks dedicated. Oh, worse, in White Plains, New York, there is a high school called Archbishop Stepinac High School. Worse, they have allegations of molestation.
Imagine going to the Adolf Hitler High School in Florida or something.
No, but this thing is that the priests at the Archbishop Stepinac High School have been caught molesting children.
Oh, right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, to no one's surprise. And I'm like, okay. Archbishop. Yeah, and it's in White Plains, New York. We're not surprised by, but I don't know what to say.
So the article mentioned that you're doing more of these bricks over December. Is there more to come, or?
Yeah, there's one about the Vietnamese Rangers, oh yeah, there's plenty. We're also having a drive. We need 500 subscribers to sustain ourselves, and we're gonna have really exciting projects for next year. So we are at 436. So we are looking for whatever that is, for 500 minus 436 paid subscribers. So please become one at historically.substack.com. And you will, trust me, you're going to love our project, which is going to be a little expensive, so we need a lot of you supporting us. But it does involve...
everything that's good involves financial backing, right? Everything costs in this day and age. So, yeah, I understand. And also, what we've just read there, both 2 of your articles. So, if you like that and you want to see more of that but better... go and subscribe to Escher's stuff and help Escher make even better and more in-depth than already it is content. I mean, that's what this show is all about. The best episodes of your show are the ones where we go through one of the articles on your website.
Yep. We will,
for me, anyway.
Yeah. I'm glad you like it. Okay.
I think my favourite one we've ever done is not because of the topic, but just because I learnt the most, was the one about Auschwitz.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That article is fantastic. The other article you did about Tibet is brilliant.
Oh yeah, that one is my most popular article.
Nice.
It still gets shared all over the place because.
Nice. Well, why wouldn't it? There's not much else out there, is there? So, as soon as people come curious, they end up stumbling on your stuff. So you're kind of in the right place for it. Too many in the chat quickly before we wrap up says, do you prefer Substack or Patreon, or does it matter?
Substack, because then I don't have to. I do all my articles Substack, and so then I don't have to worry about adding you to as a Substack user after you pay. It's like a really.
It's less work for you. All right, yeah, less work for Escher on Substack. Join there. Also, for us, don't forget we've got all our stuff merch, Patreon, YouTube membership, which gets you the same. You get to join our Discord, whatever. Chat with the people on there after the show sometimes. Yeah, that's it for this episode, I guess. An interesting topic, quite horrific to learn about, but at the same time, it should be known about. I think stories like that are this is why when you see the USSR commemorating the World War II in the way that they do, it's stories like that, which is why, as opposed to the West, where it's about like Spitfires flying around over Britain. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I think the Soviet, the Eastern Europe telling of the war is from the perspective of those villages, like films like Come and See and things like that, right?
Oh God, but yeah, that is like a film. And then there's another one called Dara, Inovac. Oh my God, you can't. Yeah, those are those are two very good but very horrific.
Well, there's loads of Soviet films that are dark, aren't there? Because if they're just retelling of that part of history, right? I don't
know.
But the Western version is like I just say, it's about Spitfires doing loops and shooting German planes down, right? It's more about the army than the human cost of the war. So I think and like we talked about in the show, we're living at a stage in history where certain people are trying to rehabilitate these fascists. So I think they shouldn't hide from their own history, right? We'll be back with our Christmas winners and losers thing probably, like, I don't know if it'll be next Friday. What date is it next Friday, Sammy? It's the 31st. It definitely won't be.
Eve. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, next Friday.
No, it's Christmas Eve tomorrow.
Yeah, which is a Friday.
Yeah, I'm talking about next Friday when our episode would be, which would be the 31st. So there won't be an episode of our podcast on Friday, but we'll try and squeeze in either the Christmas special in that week or the week after. So look out for that.
Thursday, maybe?
Yeah, we'll sort it out.
All right.
We'll sort it out. I think it's funny, quickly before we finish, I think it's funny how there's like Vietnamese fascists on that wall as well. Just get them all involved in one place, Ash, why not? Get them all a brick. I think one thing about these victims of communism memorials, we should keep it after the revolution, right? And keep these fascists' name on there so we can remember what they did and what fascism does.
Yep, 100%.
I actually hope they add Bashir Jmail to that wall, who is like basically Bashir Jmail. He was the head of the Lebanese Phalange back in the 70s.
He's there too? Jesus.
No, I'm saying I hope they add him there.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't be surprised if he's already there. Go check.
But I don't think they
Just
will
go
do
look.
because he was assassinated by a guy from the SSNP,
We'll go and have a look.
the Syrian Social Nationalist Party.
Well, he probably is on there then, because he's a victim of communism, right?
Yeah, but the SSNP is not a communist party. It's one of the nationalist parties in Syria.
Oh, right, yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, he probably won't be on there then, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
You have to be a victim of communism, not just a fascist.
Oh, no. They have one where this, like, fascist kills this Croatian fascist. They have...
Oh.
And I'm
They
like,
have-
this is literally not a victim of communism.
You're a
because
victim of fascism like Hitler is.
No, Hitler's a victim.
No, Hitler's a victim of fascism.
I know, but only because the part is thoroughly victimized Mussolini and he got scared. So there's a debate.
Mussolini,
there.
hangman champion, 1945. Right, that's it, because we're still talking about the show. Happy Christmas to everybody listening. Have a good one. We'll be back either just before Christmas or in the new year. So if we don't see you before the new year, Happy New Year too. Thanks for subscribing, listening, liking our tweets.
Indeed.
Whatever, yeah. We got a message the other day about Sammy's work on the Middle East, didn't we? So, I mean, appreciations to everybody who tunes in. Thanks. You two, let this music play
Thanks,
out.
by the way, that honestly really made my day. It was
Yeah.
very nice to read.
Nice. You two just keep quiet and let this music play out for like a minute, you know.
Right.
You can talk among yourselves, in fact, because I'll just mute you on my end. See you later.
So, yeah, everyone.